Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Schultz and I'll be the instructor for the GEOL 371 ENVR 371 course. I wanted to take some time here to make this recording, to welcome you to the course, and to go over the syllabus for your reference. We don't have to take time in class to do this, and that way you'll have access to the recording, and then you can go back and listen to that or consult with it if there's a particular question that you might have. Chances are it'll probably be answered here on this recording. So welcome to the course. My office is in Meyer Science Center 054, which is an adjunct faculty office that is right down the hall from the GIS computer lab in the basement of Meyer. Most of the time, the best way to reach me is either a couple of hours or so before class I'm there, usually 2 hours up to about 90 minutes before class I'm in that office, or if it's not on a Tuesday, then the best way to reach me is by email. We can set up a Zoom session if you like, a one-on-one session. I can share my screen, walk you through something, and demonstrate it if need be. But the best way to reach me is through email. And we also will have a teaching assistant for this course, so consulting with them if you have technical questions is always helpful as well. There's someone who have already taken the course and previously served as a teaching assistant for this course in the past as well. So you can see my email address there, and we will be meeting in 061 in the Meyer Science Center in the basement on Tuesday evenings at 6:30 till 9:15. The teaching assistant, she will provide her email address and contact information in class, and that way you can get in touch with them so that your questions can be answered. They will also be there during class the entire time on Tuesday evenings. And just to let you know, that is the best time to get all of your questions answered, is during that class time. We'll talk about some of the policies here that are listed on the syllabus so that you don't have any questions about those. Here are our learning objectives. The key to this particular course is understanding how to think from a spatial perspective. In other words, how to process space, how to be able to solve problems using the GIS software as a tool to be able to address those issues, whatever they happen to be, and in whatever discipline they happen to be in. So we'll be working most of the time with GIS software, a particular platform from the company called ESRI, which stands for Environmental Systems Research Institute. They are a company that have really been around since 1969, and they are the GIS software platform that has become the industry standard over the years, which is why we teach using that particular package. Those of you who go on to do some work in the professional workforce will see that if you use GIS software, it will most likely be with this particular package. So we will start pretty basic in this course, assuming that you do not have any sort of GIS background, and work from there. Becoming proficient with the ArcGIS software is something that we are striving for in this course. It is based on skill sets with the software and solving practical problems. So you won't become an expert in just taking one course and being able to use and have access to the software for 16 weeks. There are colleges and universities that have an entire major in GIS with multiple courses so that people can become experts in using GIS. I know people in the professional workforce who have been using this software packages for many, many years, and they still are learning things all the time. So this is not meant to be an exhaustive introduction to GIS in general or using the software. It is meant to be, as the title of the course indicates, an introduction to GIS. You will be solving problems with GIS, and you will be applying a number of different skill sets that you will be honing as the course progresses. It is a sequential course in that you will be learning skills as you go along, and that means that you will be building upon those particular skills that you learn each week in the course. They will be referring in the activities to skills that you have learned earlier in the course, so it behooves you to be able to practice, have exposure to these skill sets, and be able to function with the software and become more proficient with it as you move along. You can see the course description here is listed on the syllabus. Using spatial data collection, storage, processing, interpretation, and something called remote sensing, which means ways of being able to process and capture spatial data without having a human being associated in the field doing that. So we're talking about things like satellite imagery or using drones to capture spatial data, things of that sort. And we will be working with those types of imagery and content as we go along in the course. This is a lab course, which means that we meet for 3 hours, a little more than 3 hours on a Tuesday evening from 6:30 until 9:15 p.m. So actually just shy of 3 hours. So the general rule is that for every hour that you're in class, you will work 2 hours outside of class. That's the general formula. So if we're in class, let's say 3 hours in the physical classroom, that means double that, so that's 6 hours outside the classroom, plus the 3 hours inside the classroom. That's a total of 9 hours per week of dedication. Having said that, as we'll see, some weeks will exceed that by a little bit, and some weeks will be much less than that. So it all evens out in the end. The good part about it is that in this course, I know how expensive textbooks are, and so what I've done over the years, over the past 28 years that I've been teaching, is I've compiled a number of activities that I have used successfully in the classes that I teach. So they have been used, they have been vetted, they have been successful in the classes that I've used, and I've compiled those into one open educational resource. And it's called Learning Spatial Skills Using GIS, Applying Spatial Concepts to Solve Multidisciplinary Problems. So that is compiled into a open educational resource workbook that is offered at no cost to you in this class, and it is available only on the Canvas site. So you'll be able to log into Canvas, you'll be able to download that in a PDF form and to save that externally, but you'll also be able to access that open educational resource, that workbook, on the Canvas site as well. Other online learning GIS learning resources that are listed here that are very helpful to you but are not required. You can see the links that are there and you can click on those. There isn't anything here that is required for you. We will be using the ArcGIS Living Atlas as a tool, and you'll be instructed on how to use that within the workbook itself. Since the Esri platform, this GIS software platform, is rather technical and rather complex, you'll need some help with it. And there are times when you'll need to do some research to be able to find how to do things. I will post videos and recordings within the Canvas site to help you along those lines so that you can go step by step by watching the videos and be able to create the workflow that's going to successfully generate the submissions that you'll need for the assignments. But sometimes you may need to do a little bit of research, and I think that's a good life skill to learn. Wheaton College has licensing for the ESRI software. So if you haven't already, you should be receiving an email that will give you usernames and access to something called an ArcGIS organizational account. Wheaton College has the licensing for this, so each student will receive their own license to access the organizational account. And we refer to that as ArcGIS Online. So that isn't anything that you need to install. That is completely browser driven, and it is something that you access only online, so there's no software to install or anything like that. So what that means is that once you receive that email, you should follow the instructions on the email, and by the time that you hear this recording, you probably have received it already. Follow the instructions and set up your organizational account. Esri offers another type of account also, and that one is actually called a public account. The public accounts are free, but we will not be using those at Wheaton College because we have the organizational accounts. The public accounts are very limited in what they can do. It's sort of like a trial version, whereas the organizational accounts are the fully licensed version, and that's what we want to be able to use in this course. The correct version for the desktop version of this software, if you will, is called ArcGIS Pro 3.4. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you'll be able to access that, and again, I will make recordings and put videos on the Canvas site so that you'll have no trouble accessing how to use the ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS Pro and ArcGIS Online are two different packages. ArcGIS Online, as I said, completely browser driven, online, no software to install. That's an organizational account. The ArcGIS Pro 3.4 is the licensed version of the full package of the software. That will you'll find that that'll be installed on the computers in the GIS lab, so you'll be able to access those because those will be hard installed on those computers in that lab in the basement of Myers Science Center. And the software is also available to you through Thunder Apps. Thunder Apps, if you haven't used it before, is essentially a remote access to the software. So that's another way that you can access that, and that is just by going to thunderapps.wheaton.edu and then clicking on ArcGIS Pro 3.4. Keep in mind that this is only software for Windows. The ESRI company only manufactures the software to work with PCs because they have an agreement with Microsoft. They don't have an agreement with Apple, so the software is not available. Having said that, there is actually a way to run the ArcGIS software on a Mac if you have that, and that is by accessing through Thunder Apps and clicking on something called Parallels. And I'll again make a video on how this is accessed so that you can follow along should you have a Mac computer. Because the software is increasing in complexity all the time to take into account developments in technology, the software system requirements for hardware to run the software are increasing all the time. So I put a link on here for software system requirements for ArcGIS Pro in case you want to install it on your own computer. And I'll make another video that shows you how to download the install file so that you can put it on your own PC. Again, you're not able to install it, hard install it on your computer if indeed you have a Mac. But click on that software system requirement link to make sure that your PC has the horsepower to be able to run it. Again, the OER workbook that I put in the Canvas site, that includes all of the activities that you'll be needing in the course. So that is your Bible for the course, has all the assignments, and they're all available for download on the Canvas site within that Open Educational Resource Workbook. As I mentioned, make sure that you download that instead of trying to do that online and accessing directly in Canvas. Simple reason is because you're going to find if you access that workbook exclusively on Canvas, it's going to be much slower. It's going to take time to download that workbook every time, and it's a large document. So download it, it's in a PDF, have it next to you and open it up when you're doing your assignments with the software. Open it up in a separate window and follow along, and you'll have immediate access to it. You don't have to watch it download like you would within Canvas. All of the slide decks, assignment materials, everything is within Canvas. So you will exclusively be going to Canvas. That'll have everything that you'll need, and you'll be able to follow along with weekly assignments and so forth. Now, having said all of this, this course is a hybrid, which means that it has weekly learning modules. Weekly learning modules begin on Mondays at 12:01 a.m. That's when you can have access to all the materials for that week. And the learning module closes on the subsequent Sunday at 11:59 p.m., at which time all assignments and quizzes are due, and those assignments and quizzes become unavailable after that time. All the content in the learning modules each week will remain open. Once it opens in the course, it stays open. So that means you can go back and look at the content, but you cannot download or access the assignments or the quizzes. Once the module is over, that's it. All of the assignments are due, and there are no late assignments accepted, unless there are some special circumstances. Now, if that happens, please contact me before. Don't wait until after the assignment is due and say, oh, I couldn't turn in the assignment because of this. You must tell me before, and that way we can arrange for an extension on your assignment. Should you not let me know beforehand, you can't get credit for the assignment because it's already gone. It's already been due. So, like I say, Canvas is the place to go for everything in this course. And let's talk a little bit about some of your objectives and how you're assessed in terms of a grade in this course. First is the practical applications. We have multiple practical applications. Many are set up for you to work through step by step. So it's literally click here, here's a screen capture of what this should look like on your screen, and then click here, go on to the next one. So they are like a cookbook. They're easy to follow. And that's predominantly how you'll be developing your skills. One thing that I will caution you is that you can click and look through things. We don't want you to become a button clicker. We want you to know what you're doing with the software and develop your skill sets. So don't get caught into the trap of just clicking and going through the assignments and not knowing what you're doing. Creating a beautiful map at the very end is not your goal here. Your goal in this course is to be able to develop skills with the software and solve problems, not to create perfect maps. So those practical applications, you'll have multiple ones each week because there are multiple skills that you'll be learning during each learning module, weekly learning module. One thing that I'll mention here, while we have a number of activities that will be due throughout the course, you are permitted to skip 5 of those throughout the course, with the caveat that you may only skip 1 per learning module. And the reason for that is because, as I mentioned previously, this course is sequential, and you'll be developing the learning skills with GIS, the geospatial skills. And those are presented in each learning module, and there are sometimes multiple assignments that use those same skills. If you skip 4 or 5 assignments with one learning module, you'll miss out on all those skills. And we don't want you to do that, so only 1 assignment, 1 submission can be skipped per learning module. 5 total in the class, but only 1 per week, or 1 per learning module. We also have concept quizzes, which I sometimes refer to as check your understanding, and that's exactly what these quizzes are meant to do. They're straightforward, they're usually multiple choice, true false, matching of terms, things of that. You may use anything that you have learned in the course to be able to take the quizzes, but you may not do these with a partner. These are always individual, and we'll ask that you please adhere to the academic integrity policies of Wheaton College and do these individually. The quizzes must be done by you and you only. So we'll have one of those each learning module. Not meant to be difficult. They don't have any time limit on them. They're very straightforward, and they're each worth 10 points. Incidentally, the application activities, they're all worth 10 points too. Some are long, some are short. Most of them are kind of medium in length. Hopefully you're not going to be exceeding the total of 9 hours of work per week. As I mentioned previously, there might be some weeks that you do, but there are many weeks when you'll be less than that 9 hours, so it all works out in the end. But all of the practical application submissions are worth 10 points. Since some are longer, some are shorter, they're all just worth 10 points, and it evens out in the end. Near the end of the course, probably with about a month or so left to go, I'll introduce some final projects. And the final project will be a compilation of a problem that you'll try to solve individually by designing a GIS project. It'll be in the form of a poster, and we'll talk much more about that in detail about a month from the end of the course. You'll also provide a video presentation of that along with the slide deck that you used when you did the video, and that will be due the last week of the course. Throughout this entire course, when you submit an assignment on a Sunday, I will look at it on a Monday after everyone has submitted their assignments for the week, and I will provide some feedback along with your grade for that particular assignment or that activity. It is your responsibility to take a look at the feedback, to address those comments in that submission, and then to save it. When you save it, I recommend creating a special folder for yourself that includes all of the assignments throughout the entire term. The goal here is to be able to save each assignment, name it with a specific naming convention, which I will provide to you in class, and you keep adding on to that folder with all these files of your submission throughout the entire course. And when you're finished, you'll have a collection of all the assignments where you have addressed all of my comments, and you'll have a really nice takeaway for the course. I call it a GIS e-portfolio of your skills. And that way, the practical aspect of it is when you leave the course, you walk away with a nice portfolio. If you interview for an internship or for a full-time position somewhere, you can not only note to that person that's interviewing you that you have these skills with GIS and the industry standard software, but also you can demonstrate it and show them the skills and the products that you've created. So it's very beneficial, and it provides documentation of all the work that you've done in the course. Really nice takeaway. Lastly, attendance at each class session is required, and I suspect that when we meet in class, you'll want to get all your questions answered. The teaching assistant and myself will be the ones who will be answering your questions. The technical questions, anything about grades or the course format or any personal issues will be discussed with me exclusively and not the teaching assistant. The teaching assistant will only be a person that will be a reference source for you to be able to answer the technical questions with your assignments. If you add up all the points here, you'll see that the total amount is 1,250, and we'll take a percentage of that, whatever you've accumulated as far as points, and it's a 90, 80, 70 scale for a letter grade. think I already mentioned a little bit. Everything that you'll do in this course is stemming from the Open Educational Resource Workbook. So that is the hands-on element to this course. And it's nice to have it all in one place. Number one, in a PDF file that you can download and use from there. But it's also nice to be able to be exposed how GIS can be used as a tool to solve spatial problems in whatever your major area of study happens to be. I talked already a little bit about the GIS portfolio, and I will remind you throughout the course that you should be saving all of those submissions with the comments and the feedback addressed, so that when you get to the end of the course, the last day of the course, when the e-portfolio is due, you'll just have to combine those into one PDF and submit it. If you don't save those each week and address the comments and put those into a separate folder, you're going to find yourself having to go back and address all the comments from all of the submissions throughout the entire course, and that's going to be a huge amount of time on your part to be able to do that. So do it as you go along. Don't wait until the end of the class to be able to do this. It is designed so that if you do this week by week, addressing the comments and saving those corrected submissions with the feedback taken into account, that when you get to the end of the course, all you'll do is just take all of those files and condense them into one PDF and submit it. That's how this is designed. I put some information here on class attendance, assignment return. It is always my goal to be able to return grades and feedback to you from a learning module before we meet the next Tuesday. So when everything is due on a Sunday at 11:59 p.m., I go through and grade those hopefully on a Monday or Tuesday morning, and by the time that we get to class on Tuesday evening, you'll have all of that information, the feedback, the score on it, and so forth, and that is the time to discuss that with me if there's something you don't understand, or if you need some confirmation on how it was scored, or how to do a particular step, let's say, within that assignment. I noted here once again that the concept quizzes are to be completed individually, and they are to be your own work. There has been some question over the last probably couple of years or so about the use of artificial intelligence. I am of the mindset as an instructor that artificial intelligence is a tool, much in the same way that the internet is a tool. Used properly, it can be very educational and it can be very helpful. Like anything else, there are some things that can be abused as well. I do not have a problem with you using artificial intelligence tools such as ChatGPT, as long as you cite when and how you use that tool. You won't be able to use artificial intelligence to just put in the activities that I have and have them complete that, because the activities are quite complex and they use specific types of data, and ChatGPT or AI in general isn't designed to be able to do that sort of compilation. So again, artificial intelligence, use it as a tool. You'll need to do some research throughout the course, and that might be a good source to go to get some of your questions answered, especially about using the ESRI software, because ChatGPT actually does a fairly good job of pointing you in the right direction for that. Next section here on the syllabus about academic integrity, classroom demeanor, and inclusive language. I'm not going to read in great detail. What I will say is that there are some definitions that are listed here for plagiarism, for cheating, and for fabrication. Those are three separate things. I invite you to read through these to make sure that you understand the distinction between these terms. Most of the time when I've had students in the past who have plagiarized, it wasn't that they knowingly did it. It was that they were unsure about how to cite or what the proper notation was. So it's a learning time for people when they don't understand uh, plagiarism aspects of things. So I invite you to read through these, what the definition is, and if you ever have any question about something, just come to me and we'll talk about it. And I'll show you the right way to cite things, and I'll show you um, how to go about doing this so that you're getting information from a credible source. That's the main thing. Information literacy is really important, especially in technical areas like this. You want to make sure that you get your information from a reputable source. So I'll let you read through that. The classroom demeanor. The only time that this has really come in play before is when we meet on Tuesday evenings and people are working diligently in the class, working on their activities and so forth. And somebody will come in late, making noise, disturbing them, disrupting class. So let's please avoid that. Let's be on time to class. And also be mindful of others in the class, that you're not talking or have your music on or things like that. Everybody's trying to work in the course on Tuesday nights, so let's just be respectful of others. That's all I'll say about that. The equity, Title IX, and non-discrimination policies, what I will say about that is that it's probably verbiage that you'll see on every Wheaton College syllabi that you ever use in any class, so you can read through that. One thing that isn't particularly important, at least from my perspective, is gender inclusive language. You can read here about the policies for Wheaton College, but what I will ask from you is that if you use specific pronouns, to please let me know, and I will refer to you using those specific pronouns. Some resources here for practice, and I listed those. One thing about accommodations in this class, usually what happens is prior to the course beginning, I receive a notice from LAS, the Learning and Accessibility Services folks, who will let me know who needs specific documented accommodations in the class. I will undoubtedly contact you and ask you privately if you feel that there are additional accommodations that you need, and we can talk about that, or if the accommodations that are documented on that letter are going to be okay for you in this particular classroom. But I want to make sure that you have all the support you need for the accommodations and that you'll be able to successfully work in this class. There are a couple of resources that are listed here on the syllabus. I seriously doubt you'll be using either of them much, because we don't have any papers in this class, so the Writing Center probably is a moot point. The library and online resources. The librarians are very helpful, and we do have a subject librarian for the environmental sciences, and she is helpful with getting you some resources that you may need. For the most part, though, you'll get everything that you need in the classroom from myself and from the teaching assistant. To make it easy for all of you, I plotted out the weekly tentative course schedule for the entire course. So what that means is that each weekly learning module, the content will become available, as I said, on Mondays at 12:01 a.m. and that will stay open. All the content will be accessible once it opens in that learning module for the remainder of the course. So you can go back and check the content anytime that you like. That includes videos and readings and things like that. Because the assignments time out on Sundays at 11:59, you won't be able to take the quizzes after that time in that learning module, nor will you be able to submit the activities. Keeping in mind that you have 5 of those that you can waive, 1 per module only. So let's start here with the first week. We don't have a physical class meeting this first week, primarily because Wheaton College's fall term starts on a Wednesday and we meet on a Tuesday evening. So when the course starts, I will open everything up on that Tuesday before the first day, and you can access it Tuesday night just before the course begins on Wednesday, the 27th. And then we'll have assignments that will be due for that week, as you can see here. There will be exploratory activities. Those are nothing that there's a submission, but those are to get your feet wet with the GIS software, accessing it, things of that sort. And there is just one concept quiz there that is very straightforward, and it is just from all the materials in the first module. So no submissions except for the concept quiz during learning module number 1, and that quiz is due again by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So throughout the course, every week a module opens up, then you're able to access it. Tuesday nights we'll work on those. There are no lectures in class. I may give a quick welcome to you on a Tuesday night and mention something just to keep in mind for your work for the week, but there won't be a lecture because all of the materials that you need are online. I don't want to use class time where you can be working on things and being actively learning for lectures. So those are all on Canvas in the form of videos. This should take us through the entire term, all the way till the end. And then I'll introduce the final projects about a month or so, maybe around week 12 in the course. And then you'll have a full month, 4 or 5 weeks to work on that project because it is different for everyone. And some of the projects take a lot more time than others depending on what you choose to work on. So that's why some of the last couple of weeks are just work on projects. We won't have any assignments. You'll be concentrating exclusively on those projects and on completing your e-portfolios. Both the project and the e-portfolios are due on the final day of class, actually Thursday, December 18th. But I'll remind you of all these things as we go along in the course. So that is the syllabus. Please come back to this at any time if you have questions. Hopefully I've covered everything here in terms of the particulars of the class, the format, the assignments, the grading policies, etc. So let's go to the Canvas site now and let's take a look at what you will see when you log in at the Canvas site. First thing that you'll see when you click on Home is you'll see the kind of the home splash site where you'll see some little tips, navigation tip about using the course menu on the left-hand side. Incidentally, this screenshot here for you is going to look a little bit different because I'm using it from the instructor's version. So you won't see some of these things here on the right-hand side. There are some quick links at the bottom. For example, the class announcements, the quizzes. You'll be accessing and using the learning modules most frequently. And then, of course, your OER textbook or your workbook. There's a link to that as well. So let's click on announcements. And you can access this first announcement here, which will be sent out to you via email. I will send out an announcement or post an announcement each week, usually on Mondays, perhaps on Tuesday mornings, and that way you can see all the comments. There will be feedback here from the previous module. There will be a preview of some of the skills and some of the content that will be addressing on the current module, and then some tips or hints or some of my observations that we've seen. So make sure that you have your notifications sent, and the way you do that is you click on your account over here on the far left hand side, and when you do that you click on notifications, and that will allow you to be able to receive the announcement as soon as I post it. Otherwise you would have to come into Canvas, log into it, and then read the announcements there. But it always helps having your notifications set so that you get the announcement right away via email. Syllabus we already clicked on, but here it is. On Canvas, you'll see the syllabus link is up here. You can download that, print that. That'll be in a PDF if you like. And then your tentative course schedule. I would recommend downloading that. And another thing too for this course, since we use such large data sets, GIS creates these enormous data sets, it's important to you to be able to keep those all in one place. The college has allotted you some space on the T drive or your temporary drive, which is private to you only, but they only allow 15 gigabytes, and that's not nearly enough. Some of the files and the data that we'll be using approach hundreds of gigabytes. So it is my recommendation to you, a la a requirement, to get yourself an external solid state hard drive with probably about 1 terabyte. I would recommend should be large enough to save all your files and things. And that's probably something that you either A, already have, or B, you'll be using for other classes too. I do not recommend the small flash drives, and the reason is because those can be easily lost, and when you have information on there, sometimes private information, we don't want that to get into the wrong hands. So a solid state drive that can be a plug and play, a USB, those are available on Amazon for, now they have them for less than $75, and you might even be able to find one for $50. But I recommend 1 terabyte in size. So on the syllabus page here on Canvas, you'll see all of the assignments, all of the due dates. You can individually click on those. Again, these will not be open until that particular week. So for example, Learning Module 1 will be open, and these are the due dates for everything in Learning Module 1. All of the subsequent learning module activities and quizzes will not be open until those weeks hit. So you can't work ahead in this course, and the reason is because sometimes if people work ahead, they do assignments on down the line, they skip some assignments in the interim, and that's not building up your skill sets in a sequential order. Sometimes also submissions happen, you get those back, and if you've worked way ahead, those can sometimes be shared with other students who haven't gotten there yet, and we don't want that to happen. So we want everybody on the same page. We want everyone on the same learning module with all the same due dates and so forth. That's why the modules are not opened ahead of time. Let's click on modules on the left-hand course menu. And again, these will be a little bit different than what you will see. You won't see any of these things on the side, these little symbols, because that's the instructor's view. But let's take a look at some of these and what they look like. The first one is the OER workbook. And if you click on that, here's what happens. It takes Canvas just a little while, and then it says large files can crash your browser. So download this instead. That is my recommendation to you. Just click on download. It is a PDF file. Put it on your external solid state hard drive and have that open in a window while you're working with the GIS software, and you'll be able to have both windows open, follow right along with your activity step by step and working on the GIS software. If you access it here all the time on Canvas, it's going to run slowly, and it's going to take time to actually open all this up. So I highly recommend downloading it. Incidentally, when you use Canvas, the best practice is to use Google Chrome or Firefox. Do not use Edge. Edge does not play well with Canvas. I know you may not have shown this before, but Edge does not play well also with the ArcGIS online software, which is browser driven. So make sure you use Google Chrome or Firefox only. Here are some GIS resources here. This is where I will post some videos which will be step by step so you can follow along the video for things like taking a screenshot in Windows if you haven't done that before, packaging up a project, accessing the various software packages, which is under GIS software tasks, those types of things. I make those in video form because I think it's a lot easier to follow along when you have a visual as opposed to just reading it. You can rewind the video then, you can stop it at any time and so forth. A little easier to go through doing that than it is to actually reading things. So that's the GIS resources. What you will be accessing mostly are these learning modules. So for the first week, here's your learning module. You'll see a lot of videos in here, a lot of instructional videos that are about applications. So in different fields of endeavor, you'll see how GIS is used to solve various types of problems. And I think many of you may be a little bit surprised in how GIS is used, and others will also be surprised that you've already used GIS, whether you know it or not. If you're going on your phones and you're trying to find the nearest Starbucks, you're using the form of a GIS. The GPS is what is used by the satellite system to be able to pinpoint a location, but the GIS is the collection of the spatial data that allows you to be able to access where that Starbucks is and find it and plan a route for you. So that's part of the GIS, not the GPS. There are some readings in here about different topics and so forth. One of the things that I will be stressing in the course is best practices for file management structure. As I mentioned before, GIS software creates huge files and many, many files. If you don't have a file and folder structure for those, you're going to be spending literally hours looking for individual files because there will be thousands. And that is a waste of your time, because if you set it up properly and have the right folders and file management structure, you will be able to find those files that you need immediately and save you literally hours and hours of time looking for those files. I will introduce this in our class on Tuesday evening and remind you about how this works repeatedly throughout the course. You can see that here are the exploratory activities in the class for the first week. Those are not to be submitted. Those are just, again, to introduce you to some of the concepts in the software. But the concept quiz is worth 10 points. Again, that will be due on Sunday by 11:59 p.m. Let's go on the left-hand side to assignments. And this will give you all the assignments in order, including all of the due dates and when they will be available. So none of these have opened yet because we haven't started the course, but you will be able to access only the ones during the current module. And then once that module is over, 11:59 p.m. on Sundays, then that will no longer be available for that activity or for the quiz. So that week, assignments are due. If they're not turned in by the Sunday during that week, by 11:59 p.m., then there's no credit for those assignments. Keeping in mind that you can waive up to 5 throughout the course, but only 1 per learning module. Same thing here with the quizzes, just like clicking on assignments tells you when all of them are due throughout the entire course. They will be only accessible during the current learning module. Lastly, if you click on grades, that's where all the scores will be posted. I'm not going to click on that because it would, from the instructor's version, that would bring up everybody's name. But you'll be able to follow along what all your grades are, and it gives a cumulative score adding up all your grades thus far in the course. So that's in real time that it gives you your score. You should never have to know what your grade is currently in the course because that's what it provides for you. So with that, I will welcome you to the course, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the class and to meeting everyone. The first night of the class, I'll introduce myself, and meet all of you as well in the class. And I hope that this is a course where you're able to take away some skills that are applicable to whatever your major area of study happens to be. I can provide lots of different examples in many different disciplines where GIS has been used as a tool to be able to solve various types of spatial problems. So that's the gist of the course. Again, welcome, and I look forward to working with you in this course.